Okay.
And yeah,
Can you
I'm
hear me okay?
so, yes, I can hear you. Can you hear us just fine?
Perfectly. Yeah.
Oh, perfectly wonderful. Ramiro, do you know Lizette?
I
Not
do not.
yet.
No.
Oh, good. Well, introducing you two together, I'm just meeting you all. It's not like we hung out together and I said, "Hey, would you come on? I love what you're talking about. Please come and talk about it on aspects of aging." But I probably have been exchanging alphabet letters with Steve Berger the most because he's been showing up and asking encouraging things and cheering on in recent days. But Lizette, I mean, I've known you through different hairstyles and different photos. So
And about
it's,
20 pounds.
and what pounds? No, no, we're not going to talk about that after I ate all that chocolate yesterday. We moved to a neighborhood where the chocolatier, like homemade chocolates, takes me less than a minute to walk there. So I'm not even burning anything the way there and back. Oh
Well,
my
Romero,
goodness.
it's nice to meet you. I'd met Lizette
Yeah.
briefly earlier, but I discovered Christine's show probably back in March through Abby Ritchie's Tech Tuesday, and as I told Christine, I learn something every week, and every week I make meaningful contacts with people like you and companies who are doing great things in this aging better movement. So it's nice to be here with the both of you.
Yeah.
Boy, I
Similar.
I would hope that everyone that comes on to one of these, whether it's mine, Abby's, anyone else's, would leave feeling like, oh, I heard something that buoys me personally. I met someone who is making my curiosity, it's piquing my interest. I heard something that I want to pursue and see if that's something I would love to incorporate in my business. That would just be great if it was always that way. And I would hope that someone would say, I just didn't get all that. Can I come on again in a couple of weeks and see if maybe it gets going for me? Lizette, I am simply going to ask you.
Yes, ma'am.
I saw a few different things on your LinkedIn profile. Is there one particular thing that you always say, like a string of words or something that helps a person think, what's Lizette about? Because I know the word dementia
Yes,
is
ma'am.
something that you know
Passionate.
inside out,
Yes.
and you know how to bring it forward for someone who's going, thank you. But
So I
what
guess
what
what I'm working on
yeah.
becoming known for
Mhm,
is the go-to person for daughters of dementia who
mhm,
want to keep their parent at home. It's taken me 3 years to come up with that. So
yeah.
it's a long process. And part of the reason it's taken 3 years to come up with that, Ramiro, I don't know if he knows, but I think he is a physical therapist. I'm an occupational therapist by background.
Mm,
And so I started my business, which is called Think Different Dementia, because I want people to think differently about dementia. I don't believe it's all doom and gloom. I don't believe that people need to be in a facility. I do believe that you can take care of a person with dementia at home. And I've successfully done that with thousands of people over the last 30 years as an occupational therapist. But my life radically changed because I was sitting at my desk in Greenwood, which we don't live there now, but I was sitting at my desk and the phone rang. And my dad, who was in the hospital at the tail end of COVID, the hospital called and said, your dad needs to go to a nursing home because XYZ. And I'm like,
oh.
no, not happening, not my dad, not ever. And
Mm,
so I started down a long journey of becoming my own ideal client with the purpose and the goal of keeping people living with dementia at home, but supporting the daughters. Because
mm,
65% of caregivers of people with dementia or daughters?
You know, I suffer from the same condition that many of you have had experience with, of going, I see all these different things and I want to address them. There should be a support group. I should create I need to make this resource available. I know people who should, as you were settling in on Daughters of Dementia and think different about dementia, I think the thing that really hit me was that a medically trained person, and we are trained to go, okay, this person has seen this before. It's just an assumption. And so, you have this, so take care of it. Choose one of these options that has worked for other people. Paula. And so when they say there's only one option, you need to put them, you need to put them away from you. And you became emotional about that. You used your brain and said, that is not the only option. I'm hoping that more and more medical professionals are going, you know what? I just really like to go to these resource hubs and look at other options for my people, or even to just, we talked about that on another show many weeks ago. It's like, do they need a chart behind them that goes, or you can go to all these things and see what you really want to do about this situation. Dementia is frightening. It sounds like you are about to lose all control of everything, your body, your mind, how others relate to you, your ability to impact your environment, etc. In fact, in person at the place across from the chocolatier, right up the road, I saw a person sitting over there. My husband said, oh, they write for our newspaper. And that person literally said to me out loud, and when they discovered what I was about, I had one of my, business cards, and they said, do you have advice on how to do away with yourself if you're going Looney Tunes? And wow. And I thought, you know what? I put on my resource hat and I talked to the situation. I said, I actually do know a little bit about choosing to, I don't have the right words right now, but making that choice here in the state of Oregon. I actually do have a resource on that. And it was recorded on a different podcast. And it was hard for me to listen to. And then I segued to, it was hard for me to listen to because as a caregiver in nearly 100 different homes, when I was hired last decade in different homes through the years, my bent was toward enhancing life and dealing with people at their moment, etc. And then I was able to segue over into, there's amazing things. There's networks of people who are living with dementia, who are networking with each other, actually internationally, and I just thought, I feel like this person only saw one option.
Right.
And maybe they've experienced it through someone else. So, wow, I am so grateful that each of you are on the screen, because you are 4 different options for people who are just going, I'm scared of aging. I don't want to lose control. I don't want to, suffer or be a burden or whatever it is that is frightening for people as they think about, I'm going to be alive longer, like a lot longer, according to statistics. Oh my goodness. Am I prepared for this? Am I ready for it? And if you're not ready for something, it's not going to go as well as it could. So I'm just gonna, you said, Ramiro, I think that you are a physical therapist. Ramiro, tell us about yourself.
Thank you for having me on. Really great
Yeah.
to be on the show with you all. So yeah, I'll apologize. I've been coughing a little bit, so if I mute or
Oh,
have to drink some water, but everything's okay.
absolutely.
But yeah, I was been a physical therapist for a bit over 10 years. I kind of uh, tailored my career towards vestibular therapy, which is in the realm of balance and prevention of falls as well as dizziness retraining. I tried to reduce dizziness amongst people, and that's kind of where that was the population that I served. And I did my entire clinical career in Philadelphia. And in that period of time, as a vestibular therapist, a vestibular physical therapist, um, I felt like it's a touch point of the world of rehabilitation and therapy and technology. So I got to work with a lot of really fun devices that can uh, detect falls, detect risk for falls, and all these kinds of things. And so I just felt like there was a huge opportunity to help people on a larger scale with some of the devices that I could kind of ideally support and come in on. So all that to kind of say where I'm at now is with a company called Nobi. And what I love about Nobi is how it's taken into account the end user, the resident or the senior that would eventually benefit from this product. So it's a lamp. There's very few kind of fall detection technology that is out there that is meant to be non-stigmatizing, right? There's a lot of devices that are things like pendants, or they very much so look like stigmatizing technology. There might be a mount on the wall or something where you would walk into a room and you would know, okay, that's meant for something that's related to like the health. Whereas this, I mean, I have one actually in my home office. If you were to walk in, you would just think it's just any other standard lamp. But then behind it is all this really fun kind of packed technology centered around AI. So there's a ton of algorithm within a device that it started out being able to first detect falls because it was able to map out a room. It knows what a room looks like. It knows what a desk looks like. It knows what a bed looks like. It knows what a chair looks like. If a person sits down in one of these chairs or whatever, it knows that that's not a fall. But then it started to recognize what all these different types of falls are. So should a fall occur, you just go ahead and, oh, hey, hi, Robert. Good to see you on the call. um, and so it detects that fall and it notifies the correct individual. So it tells a loved one, it could tell a nurse if it's in a senior living community. And it actually opens up two-way communication via the lamp. You can actually talk through the lamp and speak to that individual that's had a fall, like, hey, I'm on the way, heard you had a fall. I'm here to help you out. So don't worry. Um, and then there's a whole different ways that it could kind of, support people at home. So if you, and then what I also love about it is that, we see a need for it in senior living communities, right? But we all know the population is aging. Even if senior communities were able to kind of double their outfits for being able to build, there still is not going to be enough communities out there to serve the amount of people that are going to need the services. So there's very much so a need for people to be able to get proper caregiving at home and to kind of either bridge that gap before they can enter senior living communities, or if they want to enter senior living communities, so they can extend that period of time. But then also to that, you're going to need to help those caregivers that are now going to be thrust into a caregiving position while they're in the home setting. So that's part of Nobi's philosophy, providing 24/7 virtual monitoring with the first starting at fall detection, very soon leading to fall prediction because it's a learning device. We'll be able to learn and analyze when a fall may occur relatively soon and tell caregivers this kind of information. There's going to be we have some really cool things coming up down the line. We recently hired uh, an AI like expert in the world of hearing and kind of mic and speaker detection. So what that means for the device is now we'll be able to pick up on things like ADLs. So when is someone feeding? When is someone going to the bathroom? When is someone showering? Are there changes in these routines? And we could tell individuals all these kinds of things, which are very often kind of indicators for changes in health or changes in routines, progressing disease, whatever it may be. Get someone the care in place as soon as possible before it progresses to a place where, they might need higher and more intense care. So,
Right.
yeah, so that's that's me in a nutshell, and Nobi in a nutshell. And but I'll leave it there for now.
Oh, Ramiro. Wow. Like the future is coming, just whoo, all these
I
all
know.
these things, in the past, this motion of walking backwards at that part of the room has resulted in a fall. So, be prepared. Like
Okay.
be in there in a moment. None of this, how long did she lie there? And the hematoma, became, because of not all that stuff
All this stuff. Yeah.
that we've heard, that we've experienced, if we've had loved ones or clients. My goodness, you're going to make us really smart in a moment, because you're going to help us all say that one word. Sound like it started with a V.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's vestibular. That was
Vestibular.
that's the system that I focused
So
on. That's what
that's
I did.
balance.
That- Exactly. Yeah, the balance is part of your inner ear. It's
Wow.
one
Wow.
component of
Okay.
balance, and we also know that um, dementia and falls kind of coincide with each other, so they're very much so related. Um, Same thing with hearing and dementia. So loss
Wow.
of hearing has also been kind of indicative of changes there, as well as
Okay.
balance loss as well, because it's all part of the inner ear.
Oh my goodness. You already said hi to Robert Bills, and I've crisscrossed with him on different things. And he apparently knows you and supports you and is championing Nobi, the lamp. Did anyone think, I may be the only one, that thought of the Pixar lamp that comes bouncing out, jumps? Yeah, you reckon, yeah, and then the ball goes boom, and then the lamp looks at you, but it has no face, no arms, but it's got personality. And I think of the
Yeah,
Nobi lamp as having a personality, but
yeah,
it's not putting eyes on you. It's just a mapping. I mean, I shouldn't even say, because you have better ways of saying that. I also want to say, hi, Mary Beth Flynn. If she's not on your feed, and you just need like a smile a day, there's always photographs of people painting, because her whole system, you don't have to be an artist, you don't even have to have a background as an activity director. You can be a person who takes one of her kits, and at the end you have happy smiling people who are just really enjoying art. And that's what I enjoyed when I would go into the hallway of the place, that was the umbrella place that I worked under. They would send me to private homes, but I would see art in the hallway, and I'd just be going, oh my goodness, these people and what they can do, and what can be done if you have the tool that Mary Beth Flynn provides, so that you become an art teacher. And talk about getting your endorphins and your dopamines going with, people smiling and looking and going, oh, you decided that should be black, oh, you added great big polka dots to yours, but everyone's has a similarity. There's just a great feeling. And for caregiving CNAs, activity directors in group settings, how wonderful. Russ Hedge is a friend. He is the inspiration specialist. I think that's right. And I just saw his show an hour or so ago. live with Russ and Scott because Scott is my husband. He's my hubby producer, and he comes on board and co-hosts with Russ, and they were talking the whole time about not feeling alone in a disease that happened to be cancer, and what their guests were providing. And that was from this morning. You can find that on my feed. If you go to my activities, I posted it out with 2 hashtags: cancer, you are not alone, and just posted it out. So I didn't do anything fancy on that one. I just wanted it to be there for someone who's searching cancer hashtags or not feeling alone. That comes up all the time. You all are used to talking to people in person, and probably much more in recent years interacting with people, and they can go whoom, deep really fast, and just going, man, I am really suffering with loneliness or not feeling understood or something. And you're like, wow, I am just right here for you. I can silence my phone for a while. So all of you are very caring people. Paula, in case you're obviously at work, in case you get pulled away, I don't want to lose you and go, rats, she had to go attend to something. So Paula, for some reason I said your name and poof, you went, oh, you're back. Good. And can you hear me? I can hear you.
I can hear,
Yay!
yes, I can hear all of you and barely see you, but I can see you a little bit. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to connect from my computer, but here I am on my phone.
Well, we're smiling and we are ready. Paula, you were doing something else a few months ago when you were on this show, Aspects of Aging. Now, look what you're
Now I
doing.
am I have taken the leap and I found an excellent organization, MBK, and they are a huge corporation that they're investors and developers, and part of them are senior living, and they have such a commitment. I was so inspired and taken in. Everybody has these buzzwords today about culture and about caring and being transparent, but they really they do. They live up to it, and they have processes in place to make sure that they are in fact doing that. So I just have to say, from the first interview, and there were several, because they want to make sure it's a good fit for their culture. From the very first interview, it was about caring and it was about the people. And as I listened to all of you, Ramiro, I love what your company is doing, because the reality is we have less people working in this field. And so we have to find ways to be able to keep people safe and living great lives, or their best life, until the end. And your equipment helps us to do that, because to keep them safe. And in addition to that, we have to keep those relationships too, because as we know, there's nothing more important in life. And I'm kind of circling back to MBK, because that's what they put at the very top of the list. I came back from a conference with all the EDs and marketing executives, and it was all about relationships. I cannot tell you, we didn't even talk numbers. It was about relationships and care, and how can we support one another and be the best that we can, and help our residents live their best life. So yes, I have switched careers, and I am so happy to work for an organization that I am proud to say that I work for them. We have a motto called Yoshigoto, and that means do the good work. We're a Japanese organization, and they live it. They live it, and they're very involved. They come to the organization. And that's what we're all trying to do. Everybody here and everyone is trying to create great environments so that our residents and all of us as we age can live our very best life. And yeah, I feel honored to be on this panel with everybody who is doing just that and working their very best. And as you said, Christine, you and I have talked before, so I know where your heart comes from. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the invitation back and talking about some of the issues and the great things that are coming out in senior living. So yeah, I love it.
I think Steve Moran, Senior Living Foresight, I think you would just be so glad. I know that he's not the only one that is working on, so why is this really happening? Is it really, is someone going to look at me and just go, well, how many bucks can we get out of her? That's the thing. How little can we do? How often can we avoid her requests and just get the bucks out of her? I don't like that. It makes me angry even saying that. I don't want that to happen to Ramiro or Steve or you or Lizette or my husband. So I am so grateful to know that instead they're like putting you through all of the interviews going, you know what? Is this really what she's about? Is she really about um, whether it's honoring or being inclusive, or all those words that apply to all ages, really? Is it
Yes.
is it do I wake up just going, man, I am so glad that I have these neighbors, or that new person that provides a service. I wish they weren't so busy, because I would just love to hear about their life leading up to this moment, that they're a chef, or that they are activity directing, or I want to hear about their futures. And those are the sort of people that I got to meet, or the people that were asking me or asking other service providing people, well, what are your plans? What are you going to do this summer? What was your background? And so community works for everyone. The person that is changing the bed sheets, and the person who is, checking on, did all the boxes get checked on disinfecting, or whatever it is. Community. What a difference to go. I can't wait to see my community when I go to work tomorrow. There was a time where I served in individuals, and it was independent living, and sometimes I served all night. And so as I walked down a hallway, I would see people come out of their doors because breakfast was being served, and they were so happy to see each other. And I thought, there weren't very many grumpies. And that I've got to say, management was part of that. Management was, um, a human with humans, just really, really wanting to know, how did that go for you on the tour yesterday or something, and I would hear these things, and it affected me. It made me love going there if I needed to stay overnight, because someone was just, fresh out of the hospital and family needed peace of mind, just want to have somebody's hand there if needed. So it makes me so happy. I just love talking to people. I'm going to stop and say, Steve, you've been listening to all these shows, and I
Yeah,
got you to come on. And
this
I'm
is
so
great.
glad, because you are also, just like Lizette and Paula and Ramiro, you have something else coming to this point, and you are changing, and you are putting pieces together to you're mapping gaps and building bridges. You're like, what is this about? What's missing?
Right.
How can I, be another link, a strong link in this chain of information and preparation and getting ahead of some of those challenges that seem to just knock people down.
Yes. So thank you for that. And again, it's a pleasure to be here. And Aided, we're a new company, and we're focused on providing concierge services and remote monitoring for aging in place. And we really have two primary components. We've got the comprehensive monitoring, which will focus on the main quadrants of health, safety, security, and comfort, but it's all from one platform and one app, as opposed to having to go to multiple sources with components that don't integrate. So that will be one part of the company. The other part of the company, which I think is really relevant to what we're all talking about here today, is a community support network that we're building. It's called Aided for Good, and this will be a place where our members can go for guidance, education, services, information about things ranging from chronic conditions to assisted care versus home care, to how do you have that difficult conversation with your dad about taking away the car keys because it's no longer safe to drive. And I've been through that, and I'm sure some of you have been through that. So our mission as a company is really to provide that overall support and be a trusted partner for families who are going through these aging moments. And when you need information, you need it quickly. You don't have time to do an exhaustive research. So you need to have places to go to where you can get information quickly and then dig deeper if you want to. And the people we're really trying to reach, it's the sandwich generation, what we call it. It's all of us on this call here who we're raising our own families. We're probably taking care of a parent, and it takes a toll financially, mentally, emotionally, and you just need a trusted partner to go to. And I think, all of you play that role, and we want to help be part of that ecosystem. So happy to be here with all of you.
People that are weary of waiting on hold for information. I'm not going to pick on anything. I'm just going to say we've all been on hold, waiting to get the next cue and trying to say the words into the phone. I recently hit the number, and the voice that was automated said, "We cannot understand what you are saying." I'm like, I don't know how I can. Two. I just tapped it, and you're providing that oasis that it's okay. We got this. When you talk about one place to go to, and it's in process, right? That you're working on this.
We have not launched the monitoring, but we are launching our website. So I've listed the website information on here, and we encourage you to visit it, give us your input, and we will be building content and adding resources every day. So I'll be reaching out to all of you. And something you mentioned, Christine, kind of triggered something. It's like when you have an aging parent, things can move along slowly. A change in health, it can take weeks, months, even years. But when something happens, it's like you move from here to here. And like I said before, you don't have time for that exhaustive research. You need information now. So again, that's how we want to help people, and I know that's how you all are helping people.
Yes, knowing that there are options, seeing some information going, I didn't even know that I could ask about that. I didn't know that anything like that existed. I experienced that with families looking to me and saying, do you know anything about that? And I will remember the day that a person who had a medical background said, what's a shower chair? And I was like, oh my goodness, I've just brought a gold mine in with my teeny tiny bit of experience. I didn't know, I didn't research, I didn't Google things. I just went by what I could see. And yay, that happened. Now there are options for shower chairs. Vincent Ehrenberg, boy, if you don't have him yet, Cindy Rogers was talked about earlier. Vincent Ehrenberg took apart several devices because of his caregiving, family caregiving experience, and put them together in ways that made sense. And I got to see it when it was still prototype. And I'm like, oh, I see this, and you've got that covered. And there's only so much room in a home. Um, if it's a smaller home, plus you don't want to have maybe a bunch of medical things, strewn about the house. A lot of people are just like, hey, just give me a feeling of home here. Everything's getting so industrial and sterile, so put it all together to work as, shower chair, commode, etc., short transportation. I was just like, oh, I needed that, years ago. Thank you for fixing that. Everyone's got their areas of talent and their ability to go, but what if we, and how about, and I love the idea. I love the reality of resource hubs that also send you to an expert, a professional, an inventor. So you could be like, now I get it. Okay. Oh my goodness. We started with Lizette and we are doing fine time wise. Does anyone need to leave early? Have you got a call coming in? Nope.
No,
Nope.
I'm good.
All right. Lizette.
I do need to
Yes,
get
ma'am.
off, but it was great to be on,
Yes,
and
you do.
now we're gonna be an advocate for the show, and I really would like to kind of see where things go from here. So yeah, so thank you for inviting me.
I'm really glad that you were willing and that you brought a friend in the chat column.
Yeah.
My goodness, this is great. I feel a lot smarter now. I can say vestibular, and actually, and probably like this, like with V's, and go vestibular.
Yeah.
Balance. Physical therapists. What a friend physical therapists were to me. And when I needed it, and when my clients were maybe recovering from a brain event or something, I'm just like, oh, I just champion that and everything that helps
Thank you.
everyone to respond better, to keep their health better. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, everybody, have a great show. Talk to you later.
Hi, Ramiro.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
there.
Yay. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm actually working on, since last we spoke, is my way of saying, hey, come back for a reunion. So that's coming up in June, and I'm spreading it over 3 weeks because when I did it in the past for 2022, and I had them come in February, I got 21 yeses, and that's just too much on a screen, and it's too much to be polite and say, so what are you about? Can you do it in 45 seconds? Go. So Lizette, you have more than 45 seconds.
Well, thank you,
Right
my
ahead.
dear.
You're
I have
welcome.
really enjoyed being here very, very much. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be on your show. Probably one of the biggest things that I'd love to talk about, that we talked about earlier on, is the thing that I believe in, or the 3 things or the 4 things I believe in about dementia and dementia care that's a little controversial and outside of the norm. The first one is, I believe, being a caregiver to a person with dementia, being a caregiver anywhere, is a choice. We have an active choice to be a caregiver. And that when you choose to be a caregiver, your own personal mindset is 3/4 of the battle. Your mindset about the journey that you're on. We don't choose this journey. Nobody chooses cancer, right? You were talking about your other program earlier. Nobody chooses cancer. Nobody chooses to have dementia. But we do have a choice about how we respond to that. And all of the people over the 30 years I've been working that were successful in keeping a person with dementia at home, they had made an active choice to assume the role of a caregiver. The second thing that I believe truly is that dementia care starts with you. It does not start with the person you're taking care of who has dementia. Because if you don't start with yourself, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so if you do not start with yourself, you've already set yourself up for failure. So that's the second one. And then the third thing is, I believe dementia care starts on your terms, on the person who's the caregiver, the person who is providing the care, not on the person who is being taken care of. Yes, we consider their needs. Yes, we consider their desires and their wants, but it starts with the caregiver. It starts with the daughter of dementia or the son of dementia or the spouse, because that puts them in control and they don't feel like their life is out of control. And then the fourth thing is, and this is probably the thing that's the closest to my heart, is dementia is hard. I get that, but it doesn't have to be difficult. It can be easier. So dementia can be done without difficulty, but you need the right systems and the strategies and the education in place, because it's a long journey. You got to think about dementia or cancer, anything kind of like the same way as a flight, like an international flight. You know, when you're on an airplane and you're think about that as kind of the middle of your life, right? Life is going good. We're all somewhere in our, I don't want to guess how old everybody is, but we're all in the middle of our life flight, right? And we got some turbulence coming up and down. That's normal in life, right? But when you get a diagnosis like dementia, or you get a diagnosis like cancer, or you even get a diagnosis of end stage COPD or any of these kinds of things, we know we're on a end of life. And I'm not meeting end of life within the next 30 days type of process, but we're, I hate to break it to people if they're not
You're
aware.
winding down. So
We're all going to die, right?
Yes.
we're
The
winding
taboo
down.
topic.
So when you're in a dementia care journey, and the thing that I want people to take away from this is, yes, it's hard. It's not ideal, but we all know we're going to die. And people who get a dementia diagnosis, I sometimes feel like people forget that dementia is not new. It's been around a long time. The first recorded times actually go back to like ancient Egypt, where they talk about people who have signs and symptoms that we now call dementia. So this is not a new thing. It's a part of life,
right.
just
So
like death and dying.
I have a question for you. So both of my parents have dementia. So when you say dementia care, and I'm not the caregiver, they are in a memory care facility, but when you say it starts with you, help me understand that more. Is it starts with you from an education standpoint, from a
No,
mindset standpoint,
it's
or
not like, I'll use myself as an example because it's the best example I can come up with, but I have other examples. For example, my mom had a massive aneurysm at the age of 42. And she was 42, she's 75. She is aging with vascular dementia. My dad, about a year ago, a little over a year ago, actually about 3 years ago, I started to notice cognitive impairment with my dad. But only just this past May did I actually get a diagnosis that says he has mild cognitive impairment. But when everything fell apart in my world, what I realized was that, yes, I need to take care of my mom and dad, honor your parents. I don't want to say obliged, because I chose my obligation, right? As my parents, I need to make sure that they are taken care of. And then I started with, while we were dealing with the crisis, right? In the middle of the crisis wasn't the time to make the decision, but when everything kind of settled down, And I felt like my life was out of control because I didn't have any choice. I felt like I didn't have a choice. I
Right.
felt like I was overwhelmed and freaked out and didn't know what to do. But when I took that step back and said, you do have a choice, they may be sucky choices, but you do have a choice, right? You can choose something different. You can choose that your mom and dad need to go to an assisted living. You can choose whatever it is, right? Everybody, but it starts with the caregiver. And what the caregiver, and when I mean caregiver, I'm not talking about formal caregiver, I'm talking about family caregiver, what they are willing, able to do. So, for example, I know a few things. Number one, I can never live with my mom and dad. Not happening. Um, they stayed with us for 2 months. We did it because it was necessity. But I realized in that period of time, I can take care of my parents, but I cannot do it literally under the same roof. I cannot do it. It'll kill me. It'll kill my marriage. My husband and I are way more important than my mom and dad. So coming from a what you are emotionally, financially, everything able to do. And then we looked at their finances, etc. And we actually came up with a plan. And so I call it an imperfect, perfect plan in place because at any given moment in time, I know that they cannot go to a facility. They immigrated from South Africa at 62, and they're 70, my dad's 77, and my mom's 75. They cannot afford an assisted living. They cannot afford a nursing home, which means I have to figure out how to keep them at home, but I also have to figure out how to do it on my terms. And so that's where I'm super excited about things like Steve, what you're doing on the aided and what Ramiro's doing on the fall prevention, because I see technology as one of the things that can bridge the gap for people who are committed to keeping someone at home. They cannot afford maybe an assisted living or a senior living setting. But these pieces of technology are going to bridge the gap that's going to allow people more supervision at home because I said at the beginning, nursing home is not an option. And part of the reason I said nursing home is not an option is because I was in boarding school and it decimated me. And nursing homes are boarding schools for old people. And so I just know from an emotional perspective, I could never do that. But what I do know is that supervision, the reason people oftentimes are in a nursing home is not necessarily because of physical impairment. We think it is, but people are in a nursing home because of cognitive impairment. And so I'll use Christopher Reeves as an example. Spinal cord injury, or Joni from
Tata Erickson.
Joni Tata Erickson, exactly. Quadriplegic, physically cannot do a thing, but cognitively is intact, can stay at home. Physical deficits is not necessarily the thing that keep people, that put people in a facility. It's cognitive impairment. Like 83% of people in a skilled nursing facility have cognitive impairment. So if we can work on and I'm not saying that there aren't appropriate times for people to be placed. I don't want people to hear that. But equipment and skill level is what keep people. Those are the two things that are different in a facility versus home. A facility has the right equipment. A facility, you can fall in a nursing home.
Oh.
You have 24 hours supervision in a nursing home. And you can fall just as well in a nursing home. 24 hours supervision in a nursing home literally just means that there's somebody there 24 hours a day. It doesn't mean somebody's sitting looking at you with their eyeballs on you 24 hours a day, right? So having the Nobi lamp and the things that Steve's working on, the aided stuff, those kinds of things literally are eyeballs on a person 24 hours a day, which makes me super excited.
And I love that. I think it's exciting also that you're talking about healthy boundaries for the caregiver.
Yes.
And making a path that they can feel okay with, because there is so much guilt associated with not doing enough. No matter how much they do, they feel like they're not doing enough. It happens even in an assisted living community
Sure.
where you see those that just give and give and give. I would love to share one point when dealing with somebody who has cognitive issues or even cancer. I think it's so important to remember that that's not who they are. That's not their only part of them. They are still a whole human being with a
Yes.
soul. And when we remember that, and stop just labeling them as, oh, they have Alzheimer's, or oh, they have cancer, or like you said, we're all going to die. That's everybody. Okay. So we're all under that same umbrella, but we're still different people and we have different gifts to give until the very end.
Wants,
And
needs, and desires.
I think with especially with Alzheimer's is just something as little as pausing and looking into their eyes and just looking at them and pausing, excuse me, and just taking that moment. I'm telling you, I have seen behaviors change in a moment,
Oh.
and their peace that comes over them and light. And so I just really encourage and beg really anyone who has a relationship with somebody that has dementia issues is to take that time just to pause and recognize and honor their soul, and focus on what they can do and what they still have to give instead of what they cannot. I just think it makes all the difference. And whether you have a day left, none of us know, or a several decades, it doesn't matter. You're still here for a reason, and to zone in on that. And that's the attitude I feel like as an executive director and with the team. I have a great team here, but they care. That's just all the difference. When you have that compassion, that's 90% of it. But then I also believe in putting those healthy boundaries too.
For sure.
And in the world of senior living, we've tried to rediscover that healthy boundaries, because through COVID, so I mean, I worked 2 years, 7 days a week, as most people did that were in the industry, and even more so, who had even much more stress than I did, the doctors and whatnot. But so I think that it's great that it kind of helped us to have these kind of conversations that you say is controversial, but we're much more open to them now than we were pre-COVID, right? Because we've seen the effects of burnout. And now we don't have anybody in the field, I mean, we've lost people from burning people out. So I commend you for talking about that openly, and to keep talking about it, because it's important.
Well, I will tell you, Paula, the longer I do this, I think you brought up a very, very good point about just being there in the moment with the person. Because when I look, I'm actually getting to the point where I realize that and what I mean by we, the people around the person who is having these changes, we cause their behavior. We are the direct reason for their what is called challenging behavior. And I'll use my mom as an example, because my mom's dementia crept up on me. And I remember saying things to her like, what do you mean you don't remember? What do you mean? Like, you just told me that. Like, and I'm an OT. I should know a lot better than that. But because it crept up on me, I didn't notice. And so I did that with my mom, and I caused her anxiety. I look back now. My mom's beyond that point now. So she's not anxious anymore and so on. But I've also changed what I do and how I interact with my mom. When it happened with my dad, I was a lot more cognizant of what was happening. And so when my dad was staying with us for 2 months, they lived with us every single morning for 2 months. I would come out of my room. My dad be at his computer. I'd walk to the kitchen, grab my cup of coffee, walk by my dad, and he would say to me, "Hey, Lizette, how did you sleep last night?" And I would say, "I slept well, Dad. How about you?" And we'd have this conversation 5 times every single morning, and not once did I say, "But Dad, you told me that story."
I have so much to learn from you, Lizette. So
It
I
made
mean that sincerely. So
it made such a difference. And so with my dad now, for example, he forgets the stove on every now and then. He has mild cognitive impairment. I'm hoping it stabilizes because I'm doing some good things with him, trying to help them. We'll be eating, and I can hear that the stove is still on. Old Lizette would say, "Hey, Dad, you forgot the stove on." New Lizette says, "Hey, Dad, I think I heard the stove." "Oh, yes, I think I forgot to switch it off." And it is such a difference in how my dad is responding to the cognitive changes because he has an awareness. I had to take the car away. Knockdown, drag out fight.
yeah.
Like, knockdown. Absolute terrible fight. But now that he's had 2 doctors say to him, because it used to be, "You took my car, right?" But now he's had 2 separate doctors say to him, "You are not safe to drive anymore." So now he's not fighting me on the car anymore. And and there are pros and cons, right? He's got mild cognitive impairment. I'm trying to keep them at home. So I'm training. I don't want him dependent on us, but at the same time, in order to keep him at home, I have to make him a little bit dependent on us, or else if something goes wrong, we have a problem. So for example, problem solving things like we put a new washer and dryer in their house. My husband forgot to open the faucets to let the water in for the washer. And my dad says, he thought about it might be the faucet, but he didn't actually try to open the faucet. And I'm like, that's good and bad at the same time, right? Because I want him to still solve those problems. But at the same time, if something went wrong, he wouldn't know what to do to fix it. So I have to find the boundary between keeping them independent, not taking things away that don't need to be taken away. So it's been a massive learning curve. Being the daughter of dementia is a tough place for people to be. And so, the purpose of the business that I started really is to support people like myself.
And I think you bring an excellent point. It's something that we say around here is that they are not going to adapt, and we don't expect them to adapt to our world. We step into their world.
Yes.
So if they call me Andy 1 minute, Mr. Tom, or Susie Q, whatever they say, whatever they see, I step into their world and I say, yes, you go along with it. And I hope there are families out there that hear this, because it is painful to hear. And we've all done it until we knew better, then we did better. But just as you has explained, no, you already told me that. Why would you say that? It happened yesterday. That happened 2 years ago, or whatever it may be, correcting them. To just let that go and just step into their world. And it does the behaviors, because now they don't feel that they're doing something wrong and they're getting it wrong. There's a part of them that does until it advances. And that's where all the anxiety and behaviors can come. And there's other reasons, of course, as the disease progresses. But I love that you said that we have a big part in that, of their behavior, and just relaxing and enjoying them on whatever level, and going with them on that little adventure wherever they want to go, and how they remember, or whatever they remember.
And the stories.
It's part of the beauty. Yeah.
The stories.
Oh, goodness. Everything that you're saying is so important. And I'm looking at the time. Oh, no.
With the stories and the history, if you don't capture that, then
you need
lose
to
that
capture
forever.
it.
So,
yeah, those stories are gonna, like, I'm hearing stories about my parents that I never heard before.
Right.
Never.
Right.
Because as their brains are changing, that's kind of where they're living.
Yes.
And that's what they're remembering now. And there are two ways to respond to dementia. Woe is me, doom and gloom, which sets everybody up for failure. Everybody. Or it is what it is. We can deal with it and find contentment and joy in the process, because there are still good things that happen.
Yep.
There
Oh,
are.
goodness.
And they
Make
still have
memories.
gifts to give.
Absolutely. And it may not be the same level that they used to be at, but they are still there. That person is still
Yes.
there. They're still your mom. Who cares that you're like, my dad called me, my dad literally said he mistook me for my mom
Yes.
this past week, and he's not that far gone yet. And I just sat for a beat and I'm like, Dad, you and I've never been married. And he laughed because he knew the moment, but it just kind of came out. Now, a little further on, I'm not going to correct him,
Right.
but it's just
Yeah.
knowing where they are. They're like Paula said at the beginning, they are people. Like, we're created in the image of God. We have a body, a mind, and a soul. And yes, their mind might be gone, or going, and their body might be changing, but their soul is still there. And their soul is no different than it was before. It's still there. And so the people who love people with dementia need to be hopeful in that sense, because that person, they may not know my name in the future, they may not know Steve's name in the future, but they will know how you made them feel.
Yep.
Oh, so a gentleman named Admire, and maybe he pronounces it differently, but he's saying hello. And guess who just jumped in?
I
And
see.
we are over the hour. We're just getting to the good stuff.
Right.
I'm not going to make anyone happy because I'm going to start closing the curtain. But guess who
Here you
jumped
go.
in? Cindy Rogers, who is such a connector, who I am so grateful she decided to take a step in a new direction. And she was also on the show with the other guest was Patty Sharon, who does Duplos with dementia. I mean, I'm not saying it right. She's Mo Bricks. She's written a book and all this stuff. And here's Cindy always making sure that somebody knows about somebody somewhere. And she has also stopped in to say hello briefly. Like, here's the 45-second thing that I talked about earlier. Could you just tell each other, find me here or connect with me there? What is the best way that Lizette, that you want Steve to be able to personally contact you and find out more about who he needs to be when someone he cares about has a new life trajectory?
Sure. So the best way for like viewers to get a hold of me is my website. It's dementiawithoutdifficulty.com. And then for people who are watching this on LinkedIn or other sources, I'm on Facebook as Lizette Klute OT, just OT, my first and my last name. But for the people on the panel, just message me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place. I check my LinkedIn more sporadically than Facebook, but I'm getting better at LinkedIn.
And how about you, Steve? So let's say that Paula's like, oh my goodness, I think this is a job for Steve Berger, and there's your cape flapping in the breeze. And whew,
Yeah.
how do you want her personally to get a hold of you? Because she knows you've got something that would really make a difference in her life.
Yeah, I'm at steveb@aidedathome.com, and I'm also linked on LinkedIn, Steve Burger, burger like a hamburger. So I'm pretty easy to find. So
Sunday was National Hamburger Day.
it's Hamburger Month, or was Hamburger Month. So
Oh, Hamburger Month. Oh my, it's elevated now. So say that again, Steve B at
steveb@aidedathome.com.
Aided at Home. So at is spelled out, or is it a
It's
ampersand?
It's the ampersand.
Okay.
Aided
Is that right?
ampersand.
Is ampersand?
Or
Anyway, the
it's
circle thing.
the circle thing, the circle around the ad. And the website is simply aidedathome.com or aidedforgood.com if you want to come to the website.
Oh, yes. Let's all be aided for good. We all need each other. We need the relationships, and we need somebody to care, and we need someone to say, hey, you're still capable. You go ahead and problem solve. And Paula, when I need you, how do I get to you?
You do a pretty good job, Christine. I would say LinkedIn is probably the best. My last name is Bono, B as in boy, Anno. That's a great way. And I would encourage anyone who is looking for a community for a loved one to check out MBK. We have assisted living and memory care and even independent senior living, Washington, Oregon, California, Colorado, Utah, and Arizona. But I just want to say that we, kind of mark ourselves and pride ourselves in being warm and inviting. And just like for any place where you would want to live, that's what you want. You want to be accepted. You want for who you are and in a warm and inviting environment. So I encourage y'all to check that out. And if you have any questions, if I can help or on any topic with senior living, or anything, if you look at my LinkedIn, if there's anything in my background that I can help, I will make myself available. So I appreciate this, Christine. Thank you.
Oh, thank you to everyone that put something in the comment, to those who are just listening quietly, to everyone who supports each other and is trying to get the word out about what's good in aging, how the aspects and the challenges develop us as human beings, whether we're on the receiving end, the caring end, and for plenty of us on both ends. And I'm so glad that we said those things. Now, Nobi is Nobi. I had no trouble finding it everywhere. So Nobi. I am so grateful that Ramiro Maldonado was with us for at least half of the show today before he needed to go on and be someone else's superhero. Thank you, everyone. I will see you somewhere, sometime.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank
Thanks,
you so much.
Everybody.
Oh, thank you, folks.